Hey everyone, welcome to Smash Trivia. I'm your host, Smash Trivia John. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram by searching Smash Trivia to follow everything happening with me. I'll be the one with the big old green head in the profile picture. So excited to get into this. This is the Gamma Analysis. Basically, in this series, I'm going to review everything Hulk, all the movies, TV shows, and I also do random other geeky films. Occasionally, not so geeky ones too. And I also like to mix things up once in a while by not reviewing anything. Hope you enjoy Smash Trivia Presents The Gamma Analysis. I want to ask everyone listening if they can please do something for me. Please share the hell of this podcast with all your friends. If you don't, Hulk will be angry. Now that we have all that important stuff out of the way, let's smash right into this episode. Hello, my Gamma friends. Today I'm gonna review Generation X, which is a 90s X-Men movie. It's which is wild to say because most people don't even know that this exists. And I'm doing this with my friend and Elijah from the
Alicia.
lore. Alicia,
Mhm.
sorry, from the Lorehounds Podcast. How you doing, Alicia?
Yeah, good. I'm glad that I finally got to watch this. It's one of those ones was aware it existed. I don't think I've ever seen it. And then when you suggested, you said either this or what was the other one that I have seen?
New Mutants.
Yeah, New Mutants. And I would have been into rewatching that one, but I was like, okay, this is my opportunity to see what this is all about
But
because I've seen screenshots and it looks wild.
wait, going into this, I was expecting it to be really bad. I didn't hate it. I didn't hate it at all.
No. Yeah.
This was a lot better than I expected. Like I've watched other movies, superhero movies that are that are actually supposed to be pilots for TV shows, which
Hmm.
if anyone listening doesn't know, this was originally supposed to be a pilot. It um though it seems like there's different information online for whether it was supposed to be a starting off a series on TV or if it was supposed to start a series of TV movies. I'm not sure, but I've seen a couple others of superhero stuff like this. This is easily the one that I think I enjoyed the most. Since I've also seen the '90s is Justice League of America
Okay.
that
Never
came
seen that
out,
one.
and also Nick Fury, Agent of Shield.
Okay.
And both of those are painful to get through. This
Hmm.
was not painful at all to get through. I actually had fun watching it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I've actually oddly been seeing a few different 90s things that I miss like this. Like I also watched a failed The Omen TV pilot, which I'm not sure was actually meant to be related to the Omen thing. Anyway, that was terrible. I gave that half a star on Letterboxd. I saw you and I both gave Generation X 3 stars. And that's how I feel like. I was like, you know what? I went in with rock bottom expectations and it could have been a lot worse. I
Oh
had
yeah,
fun. It was coherent, had a
yeah,
good solid ending, even though it was
and
supposed to be a pilot.
I think something that I thought was really interesting with this is I was going into this thinking that this is probably gonna totally feel a lot like the Fox X-Men movies. It
Mm,
absolutely does not. I
no.
think that tonally it feels more like X-Men 97, which
Okay,
I
yeah.
think is interesting.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess because this would have been so this what came out in 96. So
Yeah.
this came out right after the X-Men animated series wrapped up.
Okay.
Um, So they definitely took inspiration for that. They centered Jubilee.
Mhm.
But it was like watching, I said on Letterboxd, it was like looking at X-Men through a funhouse mirror, like there's no
Mhm.
Charles Xavier. Instead, you have Emma Frost in charge of
Yeah.
things. And
So I was looking into like a bit of like I the information behind this, and apparently it's not actually based particularly on the X-Men comics.
Hmm.
It is based on Generation X comics, which is apparently a spin-off of the X-Men comics that
Okay.
did not have which was not about the main team. It was about this it was actually mainly about a team led by Emma Frost and Banshee as they and
Right.
there was supposed to be particularly a more of a focus on teaching the kids than is in it than just being superheroes.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, to be honest, like if I don't think I was aware of this when it came out because I would have been totally into it because I loved the animated series.
Mhm.
At the same time, yeah, I saw that they at one point they're like, oh, well, maybe this will be like a series of films, and then we'll get, they changed up some of the characters because they didn't have the basically
Yeah,
technical ability and
that's
budget to do some of this, it's the powers, and they're like, oh, well,
mhm.
maybe we'll work up these new characters back into the
Yeah.
comics. And one on
Well,
the one,
I think it's funny with like one of those characters like instead of having a character where he has a laser beam come out of his chest, we'll have him just basically be a Cyclops, but not named
right,
Cyclops.
right. Well, and he can just see through things, but you don't need special effects for that. He'll just tell you that he can see through things. And then I have to bring up, yeah, there is a little bit of casual misogyny.
Yep.
Did expect that and did not disappoint on that front.
Yeah, and then the big thing, I think, which I brought up on my letterbox review is they whitewashed
Mm,
Ghibli, which is definitely very annoying. And
hmm.
I find and for sign that came out after the animated show, it's kind of wild to me that they chose to do that, Adam. Like because at that point. On general audience, and at least if people are going to be watching this, it's on TV, they absolutely would have known Jubilee as an Asian character. They would,
Hmm.
so I don't, so I think it's a really weird choice
Yeah.
that they were like, oh, let's make her white for some reason.
Right. And they also, I mean, but they made her like as Asian coded as white possible with, straight black hair and stuff. And interestingly, apparently, Sandra Oh, I think I read
So,
interviewed for Emma Frost, or
yeah,
not interviewed,
I think
auditioned.
so. Yeah, I think so. Oh, yeah, another character I thought it was interesting their choice for this is um because I thought this was probably about the most stereotypical accent possible is Banshee's Irish accent which apparently this is the same actor who voiced him in the animated show
Okay.
which kind of surprises me that the animated show for how good that is that they had that bad of an Irish accent.
Yeah, but do you remember Nightcrawler's accent too?
Oh God. Oh
It was the
yeah.
90s, people just
You
like
know,
people are just like good enough. Nobody knows Irish people. Like
mm,
it's gonna know.
but you in particular like was mentioning it's the 90s. Sign that I noticed a lot with going back to films from the 90s. It just, when I watched films from the 90s as a kid, which I was born in 2001, so I wasn't alive during the 90s. But when I would watch them as a kid, I never really thought anything of this. But now as an adult, something that I find so weird with a lot of films from the 90s and also 80s is their sexualization of teenagers.
Yeah. Oh, when he grabs, I love the actor, by the way. I've seen him in lots of other things. He was like chewing up the scenery. What's his name again? Anyway, the one who played the villain. But yeah,
Mm. Uh-huh.
when he grabbed Jubilee, or even
No.
worse, didn't he grab an even younger girl? It was like ick, 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 ick.
And he there was a moment where he threatened and Angelo with raping his younger sister,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
which was like,
Matt Frewer.
wow.
Matt Frewer
Like
is the name of the
it's
actor.
so wild to me, wild to me how much the 90s and the 80s were like, this is okay.
Hmm,
Which the very least, the at least the actors aren't actually teenagers, so that's
right.
so it's not actually subjecting teenagers to that for filming, but it's still very weird.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was trying to, I don't know, I kept trying to match up like the characters with characters that I knew from other things. And you make a good point that this is from a comic spin-off that I haven't watched, but I did wonder how much they were just, I don't know, like Angelo, I thought at first like, oh, that's Angel, but then he has stretchy skin and hopefully everything underneath
Yeah,
stretches because he's like
which
screaming in pain all the time. Um,
apparently that is a character in the comics.
yeah.
I had not known that.
No.
I looked it up after watching. The
Mm-hmm.
character's name is Skin is just their
Yeah.
superhero name. Which I will say I think that they did a pretty decent job on the stretching powers. I know that those stretching
Mm-hmm.
powers are something that's hard to do in live action, but I think they did a
Yeah.
pretty decent
No,
job.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um, it is interesting though that the thing that makes now three different stretching characters I know in Marvel since
Wow, yeah.
since Miss Marvel and Reed Richards.
Well, no wonder they
They,
changed Miss Marvel's powers.
oh man. Oh,
But I
I
did when he showed up, one of the creepiest scenes was like he's like giggling about the fact they're making Jubilee undress in front of him. And then yeah, but then at least she does say you're next, but it's just
mhm.
why are we getting teenagers naked and
Yeah,
poking
we
them in
didn't
front
need
of other
that.
people? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And like something that I particularly found like wild is so of all the guy characters, or at least the teenage ones in this, Angelo is the only one who I would say is not a creep, but he's
Mhm.
the one. But he's the one who gets it's humiliated as if he is one.
Well, but he is also like he goes into the dreams to go like peeking through a girl's
Oh yeah.
window. So he's a
Oh yeah.
little bit of a creep too.
Yeah, that shit. I would, but I mean, like particularly for that happened, and like literally, he just looked over in a girl's direction, and then the girl's friends decided we're going to, humiliate you. He could have done that with like, on that with like the guy who's always making jokes about out seeing through women's clothes.
Right.
Instead, that I think that would be better.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, I guess that was the point is he was supposed to
Mhm.
be, in 90s terms, he was the nice guy, but they were just
Mhm.
basically being racist to him.
Yeah.
Um,
The I can, we mentioned Virgo about how the villain in this, like he has his weird things, short things with the teenagers of sexualization, but like if if there hadn't been that aspect to him, I would actually really like this villain because I
hmm.
thought he had a really fun personality.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I think that this was, saying for I have rock bottom expectations when it comes to the 90s with very specific exceptions. And this was actually pretty solid. And I thought that it was a good ending, it was an interesting
Mhm.
ending where
Oh yeah,
he's
and
trapped in
they were,
side.
and I think they were, with this idea of like the dream dimension and all this. Like I thought it was really cool that they were willing to go that wacky and comic booky in this, and time when I don't think that was like the norm for superhero movies. They were a lot of them were a lot more like contained. They're like, we're not gonna try to really go hard with the comic book concepts.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that X-Men, the fact that this was specifically X-Men following on the heels of the animated series definitely opened the door for
Hmm.
that. But
Yeah.
I think, on the one hand, anytime I watch something from the 90s now, I'm like, how did we watch television with like zero resolution? Like, how
Oh
did we
yeah.
even see faces? But on the other hand, as you were saying with the stretch powers and also with like the dream world and stuff, that was pretty basic, but I thought that they made smart decisions with a clearly small budget.
Yeah. One thing I did like really not like is like, and this is sadly something that was a constraint of the budget, but we barely get to see any of the characters' powers.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, like
Like,
what does Jubilee do? We could see it once, basically. Yeah.
yeah, and like you have like I don't even remember his name, but the black guy, he his powers supposedly are that he just turns into different things and as he
Mm.
touches them. We didn't see that at all.
No, that's true. I forgot about that. I mean, they did say their powers at the beginning, but yeah, show don't tell. Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that was the idea. I do wonder, like, on the one hand, I'm really glad that, we got the X-Men movies we got and that the IP didn't get stuck in whatever this is. But on the other hand, it would have been interesting to see where they would have taken things next from here.
Yeah. At the very least, it would have been nice if they were that um if they'd continued with these, we would have gotten X-Men with actually comic accurate costumes and not black
Mm,
leather.
yeah. Yeah. That was the
uh,
Matrix's fault.
the trying to think I think it was a interesting but also weird choice to make instead of like the Cerebro be just his helmet. It
Hmm.
making it just be this guidance system that they have at the house or something.
Right. Yeah, I wonder if that's from the comics because that was where I was really like, why is I mean, Emma Frost is a psychic, sure, but it's
Mm.
yeah. That was what it was weird for me. Is like it felt like through a funhouse mirror in another
Uh,
world, another
uh,
dimension.
One thing didn't make sense to me because I don't think they followed up well on this. Is at the beginning it really seemed like the villain wanted Jubilee for some specific purpose, but then upon the first time meeting her in dreams, he's just a jerk to her, and then basically doesn't ever interact with her again.
Maybe he was trying her first, but she was resistant, and then
Yeah.
what's his face? The other guy was just like, "Oh yeah, sure, I'll help you,
Yeah, that
Angela."
makes sense. That makes sense. You know, something I sometimes have trouble with when watching movies is, and I particularly had trouble with this, is if you have characters with like similar hair, like
Hmm.
I'll mistake them a lot, and I think
Hmm.
particularly with the low resolution in this,
Yeah.
I had a lot of trouble with the two blonde female love interests is to be able to tell them apart.
Wait, were there two? I didn't even
And
know.
so
Think
you
I
had
noticed.
the buff lady, and you had just the random lady that
Oh, the
had
other girl.
Angelo met.
Hmm. Right, that's true. Oh yeah, different love interests for different people. But yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. No, that's fair. You know what movie I especially have that with is what's it called? It's a Christopher Nolan movie, Dunkirk. All
Uh,
the characters in that have like the same slight frame with like short dark hair or short brown hair. And I'm like,
oh yeah,
one of them is
it's
Harry
like
Styles because my friend told me and I could not follow the rest.
yeah, which I imagine that is probably a problem with a lot of military films since
Mm,
it's
right, they're in
I
uniforms.
don't know if it's the case for other countries, but at least in America, they force everybody in the military to have the same hairstyle.
Hmm. True. Good point.
Yeah. I did really like in this is they use the exact same mansion for this as they use in the X-Men movies.
Yeah, yeah, that was like nice. That grounded it a bit. Yeah.
Which is just actually the first time that they ever used that mansion, and for the Xavier mansion.
Really?
Yeah,
So it was after this.
because
Yeah.
the first X-Men movie, let me
Was
see,
2000.
I think so. Yeah, 2000, and this was 1996. So this would have been
Right.
in the first time that they ever used that mansion for it, and so it's really cool that's still as recent as Deadpool 2, they used the same mansion.
Yeah. What do you think the chances are we'll see it in the new Deadpool and Wolverine?
I think there's probably a decent chance, but
Hmm.
I think it really depends on if they spent much time filming in Canada, because I know that they spent a lot of time I think on this is filming both in Atlanta and in London,
Apparently
but the
they show the Vancouver skyline in the trailer.
oh, okay, because I know because um I'm pretty sure the big reason why a lot of the X-Men things use that particular mansion is because
Hmm.
a lot of them filmed in Canada.
Right. Well, I think especially with, we have Wolverine, a Canadian character, and we
Hmm.
have Ryan Reynolds, he's Canadian himself. So I think that there's going to be some Canada references.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there'll definitely be references to Canada.
Hmm.
But I was just mainly talking about particularly filming locations of
Hmm.
and making sure that because I think that would be the big thing for whether they actually have the X mansion. Um, I wouldn't be surprised though if like maybe one of the post credit scenes could be at the X mansion, and it would be like continuing off from that from the post credit scene in the Marvels,
Mm,
showing more of that universe.
right. Yeah, I would love to pick up with that.
Yeah,
That
I
would
think
be a really nice surprise.
I feel like there has to be something they're planning for that universe, because why
Hmm.
else would you have put that post credit scene there? Or, I for one think it would be really cool if we were to get a new X-Men movie that is set in that universe, or we have like all the old actors coming back to play the characters, but they're in comic book accurate looks. I think would be
Yeah.
really cool.
I mean, yeah, I am eager for a new X-Men cast, but I don't mind seeing out the old one. I do
Yeah.
like a lot of the casting,
I
but definitely not all of it.
Yeah,
Um,
like so. I want a new X-Men cast for the MCU, but and I feel the same way with Fantastic Four as well. Even though I want this new cast for the MCU, I also think that it would be I think because of the multiverse saga, I think before getting these new casts, I really wish that they would just have they would do one last film for like other with each of these different universes, like a new X-Men film that has the old cast for X-Men, and a new Fantastic Four film that has the 2000s Fantastic Four cast, and I think stuff like that would really make it feel like they're embracing the multiverse saga, by not just making it be a following the characters of the main universe.
I think we're in the Deadpool and Wolverine film, we're gonna get, I mean, I've been calling it the Fox Marvel funeral. I think we're gonna get a lot of those characters back, and that's like the bone they're
Yeah,
throwing us in there. Maybe it's gonna be some sort of battle world situation where they take each other out in the void. Um,
yeah,
yeah.
probably. Uh, I don't. I don't. So okay, as I mentioned to you when I first asked if you wanted to do this, is I wanted to try and make sure that I've watched all of the live action X-Men
Right.
films before Deadpool Wolverine.
Mm-hmm.
just in case there's any kind of cameos, so they all make sense.
Right.
I don't expect there's gonna be cameos from this, but it
I
would
would
be
be so
really
excited.
interesting if there was.
I will mentally high five you on the spot if it happens. But the thing is, and I know they whitewashed Jubilee, but I did like her characterization. Like she was the one who seemed the most real, where the rest were
They,
caricatures. She was actually I was like, I would
like
hang out with
they,
that girl.
with the Fox X-Men films, they did like they had her actually be Asian, which was nice.
Hmm.
Every film she was played by a different actress, but it was but at least she was always Asian. Um, but the one thing I'll absolutely give this is that unlike the Fox X-Men films, she actually had a role to play.
Right. Yeah.
Because she only has like a cameo in any of those films.
Right. Yeah, no, I forgot. Someone called me out because I didn't remember that she was in X-Men Apocalypse.
Apparently, so I haven't actually noticed her in all of the X-Men films, but I've
Hmm.
seen that. But I've looked up online, and apparently, like she's in many of them, but they're just all played by a different actress.
Right. They just give her a name in the background. Wasn't that like
Yeah.
Kitty Pryde they kept recasting every film, right?
hmm Yeah,
Well.
I think possibly. Um, yeah, it's this is really funny. They trying to think what else from the film I want to talk about. The a buff lady. I get there was this was all this casual misogyny in the
Hmm.
90s, but it's really sad that even the other female characters are being like, "Oh, her body is hideous
Right,
because
because
she
she has
dares have
muscles.
muscles." Like,
Oh, no.
really? Really? That's
Oh.
not that big of a deal.
Did you see Love Lies Bleeding this year?
Yes. I
That's in
love
my
that
top
film.
5 films of the year. So good. But anyway, yeah, it is kind of I guess that's still around because we still have people bullying her because of that. But then you also have someone else who's like, no, actually that's hot as hell. And I think a lot of, well,
Oh.
I know you're a She-Hulk fan, so
Yeah. Yeah, uh, I just think that's like it's so wild that even the female characters in this are like, this she looks awful, awful, and all
yeah.
this stuff. I'm like, really?
She just has like a little muscle
So
on her back.
rude.
Like she's gonna be a good swimmer.
Yeah, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, that doesn't really feel like it's much of a mutation, to be honest.
No. Well, they all felt minimal. To be honest, yeah, you were saying like, oh, skin, whatever, what kind of power is that? But he's probably had like the
Yeah,
most power out of
yeah,
everyone, except
yeah.
for the guy who can see is through his
The one
girlfriend's
thing
pants.
I do think is interesting with Skin's power is because I've never seen this with any other thing that had stretchy powers, but him stretching actually is painful, which is I
Yeah.
thought was interesting.
Yeah, exactly. It is. Do you watch The Boys?
I do. I do. I'm not a big fan of it, but I have
Hmm.
watched it.
Well, there is, especially there's like an animated anthology series called Diabolical, and there's also that spin-off Gen V. And that is, I mean, I'm yeah, I am, The Boys isn't like one of my top favorites. Sometimes it's a little on the nose or a little like,
Yeah.
rolling my eyes a little bit. But one thing that they do really well, there's a lot of things they do really well, but one thing that I really like about it is they do explore like, well, what about the people who have like inconvenient powers or, dangerous to
Mhm.
themselves powers or just gross powers?
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
I think that's cool. Cool.
Where
I
there's
mainly
a
say
cost to being awesome.
yeah. Yeah, I mainly just say that I don't think like I'm not a big fan of the boys just because like they've made a lot of choices that I'm like I'm very much not a fan of
Mm,
like there's just been a lot of things, particularly this most recent season I was not a big
mm.
fan of it.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, the thing that like where I kind of fell off was when they were inside the whale that was alive in season two. And just as an animal lover, that for me was just I don't know, that was where I just started to like look at it a little differently, which is going to sound lame to a lot of people, but now I feel like other people are seeing it the same way. But that's not to say
Yeah.
that there isn't spectacular acting going on there.
Oh yeah. Like,
Sometimes the analogies are just a
so
little too on the nose.
so have you watched the most recent season?
Yes, I have not. Oh, wait, yeah, no, I did finish. I
Oh
did
yeah.
finish it. See, I forgot.
So the one big problem I have with this most recent season is like their treatment of Huey in it.
Mm,
Because like
okay.
I think it's like if it felt like they were just like the showrunner must absolutely hate him, and it didn't
Mm,
feel like there was like good story reason for any of these things happening. It just
okay.
was like
Mm,
let's cause him as much torment as possible for shock value.
mm,
Like with like the we have his dad dies, and then the next
right,
episode we're gonna have him 40 minutes of sexually assaulted for laughs, and
right.
then we're gonna have him sexually assaulted again by a shapeshifter,
Mm,
and then say in the finale that he's been that the shapeshifter has done this 20 times to him.
yeah.
It's like,
Yeah,
what the
that
hell?
Tech Night Dungeon was a real miss of an episode for me. And I also feel like my favorite character this season was Sage, and she felt a little bit wasted at the end, but I'm thinking
Yeah,
they must be lining up something for her because
there
I thought,
has there has to
yeah,
be sign with that with her because like I was thinking she was going to be like end up being on the good side, not
right.
the she just actually wanted to have
She
Homelander
was
in the
like
White
bored
House.
basically. Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, I
the
think she's going to be key in taking him down, but it just felt, I don't know, it felt a little wasted. Although it
and
must have been the actress who does Starlight. She was great in the finale. That must have been so much fun to play the shapeshifter and
yeah,
Starlight,
yeah,
Annie.
definitely. One particular thing in Generation in X, not the boys, but that I found that really crazy. This again goes along with our with the issue of like sexualizing teenagers is
Mm,
Emma Frost, who is an adult and a teacher in this, saying to one of the kids to make believe you're playing with yourself. It's
hmm.
like, whoa, that's a really weird thing to say to a teenager.
Yeah. And I love how they, of course, made her like sexy silver Barbie dominatrix, you know. She's always wearing a corset and she's always got like thigh-high silver boots and
Which, it was like, on one hand, I kind of understand it, and that is her costume in the comics. And
hmm.
if the actress wants to wear something like that for the role,
Well,
I
I mean,
absolutely
it's the
am
actress did
fine
not
with
pick
that.
her own costume.
But
Definitely the case.
but I think particularly with this, there was a really weird thing with it of like they wanted to and at some points they wanted to make that it seem like that's just her normal attire that she always
Hmm.
wears. But then
Hmm.
you also had a line at the beginning where Banshee's like, I'll be ready whenever you get dressed, and she's like, oh,
Right.
I'm already dressed, as if which makes it seem like this is not how she normally dresses.
Right.
So which because if it were, he wouldn't see this as her not being dressed.
Right. Also, are we supposed to read? Is there any relationship between Banshee and Emma Frost in this?
I think so, but I'm not sure.
Are
They,
they
that's
just
definitely
like
not something they made clear, and but
business
also
partners or
they also
romantic
like had
partners?
they also had that it wasn't clear whether there was supposed to be some kind of like romantic relationship between Emma and the villain previously or not?
Well, yeah, so I was confused about that because like was he a former I think that there was probably not
So
a
there was
romantic thing and he
they
just
were
like
definitely like worked together, but the way he talked about her kind of seemed like
yeah.
he thought they were romantically together, sign.
Yeah, but I think that it was a delusion on his part is what we're supposed
Hmm.
to take from it. Or that, yeah, he was like harassing her inappropriately or something. Because she was,
Yeah.
yeah, she was like, "Oh God, you."
Oh man, yeah, it was definitely an interesting like
I'm really
there's
glad I
so many
saw it.
choices, but yeah,
So many choices.
I enjoyed it, but
Hmm.
it's definitely a sign of its time.
Yeah, yeah, it's a time capsule. But
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, I'm glad that I saw it, even if like I don't know, it might be the worst X-Men I've seen, but like, it's like pizza, all X-Men is good X-Men.
I mean, I feel like there's one thing, one X-Men thing that I see that I would say is I enjoyed less than this, which was Dark Phoenix.
Okay, yeah, fair, 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 fair.
That was painful to watch.
Yeah, like, and how could they
Oh man.
fumble that so hard?
Twice. They've
Yeah,
done that storyline twice,
it's
and both
true. And
times
they
fumbled
somehow got
it.
it even worse the second time then, yeah.
Um, one thing I thought was a cool reference in this is the Freddy Krueger reference, since both since they're
Mm.
going into people's dreams, and because the director of this directed Nightmare on Elm Street 2.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
I was looking up what else he's directed, and I saw that. I was like, oh, that's probably why they made that reference.
Yeah, no, yeah, good Easter egg. I had no
Yeah.
idea. I wonder what happened other than the villain. I don't really recognize any of the rest of this cast. I wonder what happened to all of them.
The so it looks like a lot of them like either they're doing very small roles in different things, or they're not acting anymore, or
Mm,
it seems and um I do wonder though if, with since Jeremy A. Ratchford or who plays as Banshee, or Sean Cassidy, since
mm-hmm.
he was the voice of the character as well in the animated show. I wonder if they could in X-Men 97 season 2, if they might bring him back
Yeah.
as that voice again.
Yeah, good chance because they brought back most of the cast, it seems like.
Yeah, and the ones that they didn't, they put them in different roles on the show apparently.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Or I really liked speaking of Jubilee in X-Men 97, the original voice actress, she decided to step aside because she thought it should go to an Asian American.
Yeah.
But they brought her back to be the older Jubilee in that Mojo
Mhm.
episode, Mo Vision or
Oh yeah.
whatever they called it.
Cool. Oh, trying to think. Is there anything else that we should talk about this film?
I mean, I would like jump over to another reality where this series continued and I would binge them all just because I'm curious.
Oh yeah. Wait, I'm so it's not connected to this, but I did find out there is is from the early 2000s. There was a TV show that Marvel made called Mutant X, which I'm
Okay.
interested in checking that out at some point.
Yeah.
Which apparently that because it was after the time that they sold off the rights to Fox, they
Mm-hmm.
got into a lot of rights issues with it,
Right.
which ended up being the reason why it ended up being called Mutant X and not X-Men. And
Mm-hmm.
it was and none of the characters, if I remember right, are actually like characters from the comics in the IX for that. And which is interesting. But yeah, I kind of want to. I don't know if I'll be able to actually do it there is a couple different X-Men live action TV shows or stuff related to X-Men,
Mm-hmm.
and but I might try to this week try and binge them all before I before Deadpool and Wolverine just because none of them have a lot of episodes, so
Yeah.
there's
Oh man.
possible.
Mutant X, though, I just looked it up, and apparently there's 3 seasons of 22 episodes each.
Oh,
Like, how did
okay.
this fly under the radar for me? Because I thought that I had watched pretty much all of the Marvel stuff by now.
And there was Mutant X, and there was also like 5 years ago or something a show called The Gifted.
Yeah, I
Which
watched
I'll be
that.
interested. Oh, is that any good? Good?
I loved the first season. I found the second season painfully slow and repetitive.
Okay. I
But the
remember
first season I thought was great.
I remember like trying to get into the first episode of it, and it was just seemed to seem slow at first. So the first episodes, I was like, this doesn't seem like it's for me. Hey, but I want to try and go back and see if it picks up.
Yeah, no, the first season I thought was, yeah, it was great. Once, maybe the first episode or so, I don't remember how they start. Well, yeah, minor spoiler. They start going on the run, and then, that's when things pick up. Um, but then, yeah, the second season, oh, it took me years to get through the second season
Mhm.
because I was determined to finish it, but I could only watch a little bit at a time
Uh,
before I was like, this is feels like I'm wasting my time, but I'm
so
stubborn.
I also would like to at some point watch the Blade TV show.
Oh, yeah, I don't know
Because
anything
I
about that, but I would. That's
it,
another
it,
one.
it, it doesn't look great, but it looks like it'd probably be fun to watch.
Yeah. You know what I'm
But
working through? It's not Marvel, but I've been working through the Flash TV show from the 90s.
oh, cool. But that's only like one season, so that
R-
shouldn't be a big problem at all.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, I have ADHD, so, like I
Uh,
watch an episode and then
Understandable.
I and then I look at all the other things that I'm watching and then eventually I watch another episode.
Makes sense. It's all. So, what do you think of the '90s Flash TV show? That's another one that I've thought about watching at some point.
I mean, I guess I feel about that one similar to the way I feel about Generation X, where it's like there are some like cringe, misogynistic 90s moments, but overall I'm like, you
Mhm.
know what? This is a good time.
Interesting.
It's not bad.
I've never watched the '90s show, but I've watched all of the CW Flash show,
I haven't watched any of those yet.
and I always enjoyed John Wesley Shipp whenever he appears in episodes of that. So I feel like I might enjoy his
Mm-hmm.
actual Flash TV show, but on the other hand, it very much does look dated. And one thing I find like so wild that I know about it, even though I've never watched the show, is they chose to instead of having Reverse Flash be the villain, and or Professor Zoom be the villain, they chose to make this random new blue speedster that's a clone of Barry Allen or something.
In the
The
flat and
90s
and the
show.
90s one. Okay. Have I seen that part yet? Maybe
Ooh,
not.
oh
Maybe
man,
that's like later in the
maybe
season.
that's
It is very episodic.
yeah.
Yeah, there is like a lot of he has like a different girlfriend every time. He has a different villain every time.
Oh God, that reminds me of that reminds. So, I don't know if you've seen, but sign that I've done a whole bunch of reviews for or episodes of the '70s Hulk TV show I've done
Uh-huh.
on my podcast, and one thing that comes up so many times is almost every episode he has a new love interest is and and every time you can easily tell who's gonna be the love interest because
Uh-huh.
it's always this blonde woman. It's like why is it every time the exact same and also but also why does he need a new love interest every episode?
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's like in the early Flash episodes, there's one love interest, and then it's like, oh, but I want to be with you, but you don't want to be with me, but now you want to be with me, so I don't want to be
Oh,
with you. And like,
I think the
and I'm
biggest thing.
actually seeing someone else on the side. And yeah.
I think the biggest thing that I would be interested in seeing with the '90s Flash show is Mark Hamill's being the trickster in it,
Mm.
which I think that would be a lot of fun to
Yeah,
watch,
I haven't.
which he has come back and played the trickster again in the and
Uh-huh.
in the modern day show,
I
but I
heard.
think it'd be cool to see the young version of him playing the trickster in the '90s,
Yeah.
since
Well,
I
yeah.
love
So
the of his version of Joker as well. So I
mhm.
expect I'll enjoy that.
Yeah. Well, I did because I wanted to. I haven't watched any of the CW shows, and I decided that I want to watch all of them, and I know it's a lot.
Oh
But
yeah,
I just
yeah.
so but I knew that this is going to show up, and I've also never watched Smallville, so I decided I'm going to watch this, I'm going to watch Smallville, and then I'm going to do
Mm.
all of
Like
the things starting with the Green Arrow.
yeah, so I was someone who watched the CW shows as they came out,
Hmm.
which made it so much easier.
Yeah.
Like I can't imagine trying to binge them
I'm not
and
binging them.
all
No.
because I think it would be really hard to do that just because you have to do a lot of like actual research for doing it, because as
Mm. I do have lists.
there are
Yeah, I have
crossovers
li
between episodes, so you have to be like, all right, we're at
No, you
episode
can
8
just
of this. Yeah,
Google. I have lists for it
yeah,
that have
but
all
yeah,
the
it's like,
episodes in order.
yeah, but like, yeah, you have to be like, all right, I'm on episode 8 of this show. Now I have to find out if the other show is streaming on the same AIM streaming service to be able to continue watching this crossover
Mm.
and all that. I'm like, that sounds like a pain.
Well, yeah. I mean, I have access to all the shows
Mm.
because I have too many streamers.
Mhm.
Uh yeah, and there's a good list online,
Still,
but it
it's
is
just
just the sheer volume is intimidating, to be
yeah.
honest.
And I also it's not hard to find any of them. It's just like, I think it's annoying having to switch to another show to get the rest of the crossover
Hmm.
if you want to watch them.
Yeah.
Yeah, the but like I loved watching the Arrowverse as it aired, and that's like and that is like a part of why I'm not part of the crowd that's like, we have too many Marvel shows. I'm like, I watched week to week, um 4 or 5 different DC shows
Hmm.
at a time. I'm this is nothing compared to that we get with Marvel, and I'm like, I loved having that much content to be able to watch each week.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't mind them slowing down content just because, like, and it's not just because of superhero shows. I'm just overwhelmed by the sheer volume of content in general. But I don't like the way Bob Iger has been talking about it, about like we'll focus on the popular ones, which
Yeah,
to
the
me means like
I'm mhm.
you and I are both going to get a She-Hulk disappointment, which I do think that show is way more popular than, I'm having the same situation
Yeah.
now. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I have a Star Wars podcast, the Star Wars Canon Timeline podcast, and we've been
Mm.
covering the Acolyte weekly. And I don't know if you've heard about this, but it's similar to what
Angered a
we
lot
dealt
of
with.
people.
Yeah, similar to what we dealt with She-Hulk, where every episode the haters watch it. They
Mhm.
hate watch it. We're still getting their numbers, but they're
Yeah,
just looking for like, what can I pick
so
on?
many
And
yeah, like so many people try to say, oh no, these things aren't popular. If you actually go and look at the amount of people that are subscribing to Disney Plus, they're
hmm.
absolutely are popular. They are absolutely making money off these shows. I don't know why you think they're not popular, but they
Because they're mad,
absolutely
there's
are.
women. Yeah.
Yeah, and also like, people will be like, oh, the general audience isn't watching these shows. Oh, so the general audience isn't enjoying these things. Everybody I've talked to that is not online, that I've talked to about the She-Hulk show has been like, yeah, I enjoyed that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's very clearly the people who didn't enjoy it are the people who are online listening to these right-wing grifters.
Right. Right. Whatever the Marvel version is of Star Wars theory. Yeah.
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 Hmm.
I mean, so I love phase 4 is my favorite Marvel phase because of the diversity. I do
Yes,
think it would
it's
be
so
great for
nice.
them to pull it together. Like
I
I want to see She-Hulk and Kamala Khan together,
yes.
stuff like
Like
that.
my dream aim three characters to team up is She-Hulk, Kamala Khan, and Kate Bishop up. I think that those would be so much fun to see all three of them together on screen.
Yeah. No, that would be great.
I look,
And they gave us a tease of Kate Bishop
yeah,
and Yelena, and that was brilliant. I need more of that too.
yeah,
I want the
definitely.
young Avengers. Like they keep giving us the young Avengers. I assume we're gonna get more Elijah Bradley in the new Captain America film.
Probably. The I um you mentioned like Bob Iger's statements about the popular characters. The
Mm-hmm.
one that worries me the most is him saying that they don't want to have messages in shows,
I mean,
which
it's
to
shitty
me very
superhero
much.
content if it doesn't have messages. Sorry, I don't know. I
Yeah.
cursed.
No, I'm very fine with cursing. The to me that sounds like he's trying to say he doesn't want them to have as much diversity
Yeah,
because really that's what these messages are
right.
is the fact that there's diversity in there,
Diverse people exist. Yeah.
but also
But
also like it's so.
can you imagine the X-Men without a message? But sorry,
Yeah, it's
going,
like,
yeah.
oh yeah, it's so dumb. Like, um, anything, like, literally every piece of entertainment you've ever seen in your life has a message to it.
Yeah, yeah.
If it doesn't have any message, it's just shallow.
Mm,
There's no point to it, and you're not going to enjoy yourself watching it as much if there isn't a deeper meaning.
right. I mean, I guess some people do, but that's not what's going to break molds. That's not
Well,
how the reason why
I
superhero
think.
movies became popular in the first place is because there were a few like X-Men
Mhm.
that came out and did something unique and made people think, and they went like, "Oh,
Oh
wow,
yeah.
you can do that with superhero movies."
Definitely. Definitely. Like, and thing is, yeah, like you said, there are people who may enjoy these even without messages, but I think the vast majority of people, even if they aren't actually understanding the messages in them,
Mm-hmm.
if the messages are completely removed, most people will notice that they're not nearly as interesting of shows.
Right. Right.
Just because that is what makes good writing. You having some deeper meaning to it to make it so it's not just words.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Like there
agree.
has to be some power behind it,
Mm-hmm.
and even people who say that they're not getting any of these messages out of sign, they will see something without any kind of messages, and they'll be like, "What is this?"
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
I want to watch something that has something to say. I'm not looking to watch Peppa Pig when I'm watching Marvel shows.
Right. Hey, even Peppa Pig has messages. Be
Yeah,
kind.
that's true. True. That's true. Yeah. I think it's absolutely wild him saying stuff like that, and it really saddens me because it worries me so much. So we're gonna
Yeah.
go back to mostly white male heroes who are
Shallow. Yeah.
straight.
Yeah. Well, I just think that, the way, especially as as a planet, we become less religious. Not everywhere
Mm.
evenly, but certainly in the US and Europe. Well, we'll see about the US. Well, yeah, Europe's also backtracking. But anyway, in general, we've been
Half and half.
yeah, we've been moving toward that. And then, the question becomes like, how do we communicate and talk about our values if we're not using, say, the church or
Oh yeah.
whatever religious institution? And often it is through the stories that we tell. Like that's
Yeah,
back
definitely.
as all long as humans have been around. We've told
Yeah.
stories to share morality. And so if we're
Hmm.
not giving people reasons to think about empathy and things like that,
Hmm.
then
Oh yeah,
yeah,
and
we don't.
like I think the shows very much shape how we view the world.
Hmm.
If you're watching more inclusive content, you're going to probably end up being a more inclusive person because you are seeing these people and understanding that they're not so different from you. They're not. It's
Mm-hmm.
not this, and the differences that are there are beautiful.
Hmm.
And I think that's a very important thing. I one of the Marvel shows that was is one of my absolute favorites. It's not my favorite, but but it is like very close. Is the Miss Marvel show, just because I thought it was so cool seeing this culture that is so different than
Right.
mine.
Well, I
I
think,
thought that was beautiful.
yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people learned about the partition of India and Pakistan through that show. And you want to know, I didn't learn about it through that show. You want to know where I learned about it? Or I was aware that it happened, but where I really like thought about the impact it had on the people for the first time was Doctor Who. So another pop
Mm,
culture thing.
yeah, it's something that I've long said that with like sexuality within in movies and shows, I think has very much shaped the way a sexuality is in real life. I've and like because of there being so much sexist misogyny in shows has been a part of why there are so many men in real life who are really very sexist and misogynistic and sexualizing women and
Monkey
but
see, monkey
also
do.
but also at the same time, I think there's like the fact that we've made it that there's a clear double standard of like when it comes to nudity of you can have a bare-chested man in a PG rating, but if it's a woman that has to be R rated, and I think that's stuff like that has made it so that there's a taboo thing to
Mm-hmm.
female nudity, and sadly, for the human race, taboo is something that a lot of people want. Like if and I think if we made it more equal, I think that there would be as many people who are constantly sexualizing,
Mm.
if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Well, I mean, I think, yeah, if we could just like talk about sexuality normally, then
Mhm.
people wouldn't be so weird about it. Just, yeah, I agree. Just the fact that like, oh, this is a secret shameful thing, then,
Yes,
people
yeah,
are lying about it and thus
like,
doing things they wouldn't probably if they could just be
and they
honest.
want to do things that they're not supposed to.
Mm,
And I think that's a big part of it. But yeah, it's we need to be more open about these things, and also it needs to be taught that sex is not a bad thing. It's a
right.
good thing. It's like but it's also something that we need to be respectful about.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, everyone can have their own attitude towards sex because I do also have, I have lots of discussions with people who want to take sex out of media altogether, or take romance out of media altogether. I'm like, no, 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 it should have its place. It's just
Mm.
how do we portray it there and what balance do we give it with, other types of relationships?
Yeah. I think so with the taking and sex out of media thing, I'm like on one hand, I'm like we absolutely should be we absolutely should not do something like that because it's a cause that is like pushing the idea that the sex is bad. But there's
Hmm.
also a part of me that's like, well, this is something that we should have an open conversation about, especially when there are sadly certain actors who are um against intimacy coordinators. So with
Mm,
making and so these actors are making
mm,
and other actors uncomfortable. And I'm like,
hmm.
is it worth it, our enjoyment of having sex in movies, that there's a
Yeah.
chance that these actors and actresses are uncomfortable?
I mean, I think that, yeah, there has to be an industry standard
Yes.
where the intimacy coordinators are
I think it should,
required, and there's good
yes, all
oversight of it too.
required on all sets. And
Hmm.
also, I think we need to be more harsh against actors who are being like, oh, we don't need these things.
Right, right. 'Cause it's always
Like,
an old guy who says it.
yeah, like I'm like, I love so many things that Sir Ian McKellen has done in his life,
Hmm.
but I think we should take very seriously the fact that he said that he doesn't think there should be intimacy coordinators.
Hmm.
I think that's kind of messed up that he would say something like that.
Yeah. No, I agree, and he's far from the only guy to have said that.
Yeah, and Sean Bean is another one
Hmm.
who said that, and it's like that's really gross that
Yeah.
you think I think
I mean,
you're
this comes from a place of ultimate privilege too. Like I think of also Sean Bean, the fact that in Game of Thrones and thus in like also House of the Dragon and everything, the
Mhm,
reason why the Northerners have a Northern English accent is because Sean Bean was like, I'm not learning another accent. They're like, okay, everybody do his accent, which in that story it's charming because it feels appropriate
mhm.
that they have this specific accent. It's like, oh, that's cute. But then you think like, well, this is just his position in life. He's like, I'm Sean Bean.
Yeah,
I just be myself and do what I
which
want,
is
and
which
people
is
love
honestly
me.
kind of wild to think about because Sean Bean doesn't seem like someone who's
No, he seems like a
that
nice
big to
guy.
me.
Oh,
I mean,
oh, okay.
like that. Like, there's some actors where I'm like, yeah, this is someone who's a big deal. Bean doesn't give off that feel to me. Like he's not a Tom Cruise who's
Don't
in
get me started on
Hollywood.
Tom Cruise.
He's not someone who has like I feel like would have a lot of power.
Hmm.
So it's interesting that somehow he got them to do that.
Right. Yeah. Oh, Tom Cruise. That's the worst.
Yeah. Oh man. Oh yeah. We've we've got
We
on
got way
a
off, but they
lot
would
of
never
tangent.
they would never get away with what's his face, Dr. Russell Tresh grabbing a teenage girl like in
Oh yeah,
Generation X today.
definitely. That's
And
that.
rightfully so.
Yeah, like wow. This film had so much weird sexualization in it,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah, but I
especially for the fact that it was a TV movie. This
mhm.
was on network TV.
Yeah.
Which is wild because when I think of network TV, I think of stuff that is very restrained
Hmm.
and when it comes to any kind of mature themes.
But that just goes to show you how casually they took, misogyny
Hmm.
toward women, just to say,
Yeah,
yeah, just all the lines and comments that like from every single male character except Banshee.
like God, yeah, I was like, oh, why you like,
Mm,
and someone like the character who can see through people's clothes. If he didn't have that personality, I would have no problem with him because it's like because you can't stop that.
I
If you have that power that you constantly
yeah.
just see through things, I can't really judge that. But if you're constantly making jokes, being like, "Oh, I get to see uh, women's tits or something," like no,
But
that you're like,
in his defense, once he finally did get the power,
yeah,
he like got himself out of the situation, was like, I'm sorry,
yeah.
I didn't want to look.
Hmm.
So I guess that is the one thing
Mm,
I'd say in the defense of this is that they didn't there was the casual misogyny, but in most cases it was portrayed as like, this is how we're telling you that this is an asshole.
Hmm. Yeah. It, yeah, it's just like it was a lot in
Hmm.
this movie.
Hmm. Hmm. But I
Well,
agree that other than that, it was good.
yeah, it was it was
Surprisingly
just
so.
it was enjoyable. I like the fact that they had that they incorporated the dream dimension in it. I think that is a cool part of
Yeah.
art of Marvel Comics that hasn't been explored in live action, particularly because they decided to not have Nightmare be the villain of Doctor Strange 2,
Mm.
which I'm pretty sure originally was gonna be the plan.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah,
I think it's,
this is what I don't want Bob Iger to take us away from. Like, I'm like so excited that they're starting to get into like more the horror stuff and the weird
yeah,
dimensions. And yeah, we're apparently gonna finally get some like actual demon stuff. We've gotten enough
yeah.
teases.
I want the MCU to embrace the absolute wackiness of comics.
Right.
Like
Hopefully the success of
comics,
Marvel 97 this year will help with that.
yeah, like there's some people who want Marvel to be grounded. I'm like, why? That's not what the comics are ever. Like
Watch The Crown
you're
then.
just you just I feel like a lot of people who want Marvel to be like just these serious, grounded depictions are people who have only ever read the big comic series
Mm,
and not just actually read random comics
mm.
because like you'll because stuff
I feel like
like
most of them haven't read any
Daredevil
comics, but
like sign like the Daredevil Born Again comic. It is a
mm,
big comic and it is
sure,
from what I've heard, it's a very serious comic.
sure, yeah.
But if you actually like are someone who's an avid Daredevil reader, you would know that if you went to some random comic issue, more likely than not, it's gonna be absolutely ridiculous. It's not
Mm,
gonna be this serious grounded story because that's just not
right,
what comics were.
right. Yeah, and that's one of the great things about them.
Yeah, I know. So a sign that I really want to see is see with the MCU is at some point and probably like with the I think the easiest time we could get something like this is within the next saga after the multiverse saga, since I think I think the next one after that will be the mutant saga.
Hmm.
I want to see them since the Avengers movies will not be a focus. I want them to take that time to just make a ridiculous balls to the wall crazy Avengers film with a very comic booky a plot.
Mm,
Like make it like one maybe it's an adaptation of there's a comic story that's going on currently in the comics called Blood Hunt, where it's literally all the
mm,
superheroes versus is vampires.
mhm.
Like I want them to just like do these very wild stories, and I think having a done when there's when the Avengers are not going to be the focus is probably the best time to do that.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that they're doing more horror stuff, more R-rated stuff. So despite
Hmm.
whatever is coming out of Bob Iger's mouth, I have my fingers crossed that Kevin Feige is steering things still on the Marvel front.
Hopefully,
Yeah.
hopefully and hopefully them cutting back on content doesn't mean that it's they're cutting back on the diverse content and
On the stuff I
so
like.
yeah like we instead of having season twos to these diverse characters that we've been wanting to see more of for the past few years is they're giving us 2 seasons of more Daredevil. It's like
I mean, I'm
I
excited.
like Daredevil to an
Mhm.
extent, but announcing before his show even comes out that he's getting multiple seasons when you haven't even been willing to give season twos to these shows that have been
Yeah.
it's been
Well,
a few years since is like why
I mean,
why
I
does he
think,
get
well, the
that?
reason, yeah, the reason is because they were going to do one 18 episode season. And now that, so they're like, okay, we're going to do two 9 episode seasons. So I understand that. But I want them to, I've heard for a while whispers that they are working on, for example, a Ms. Marvel season 2. So I'm like, just come out
Hopefully.
and say it. Just come out and say it. But now instead they're like, oh, that Nova project, just to let y'all know, that's coming out in 5 years. Like, oh my God.
Oh my God. And I find that I really worry about the out is like for characters like Miss Marvel, Captain
Mm-hmm.
Marvel, and Monica Rambeau is because of the Marvels not doing very well.
Yeah.
I hope that they don't decide to not do these
Right.
more from those characters like it's especially since that was not the fault of the actual movie. That was the fault
No.
of Bob Iger being a greedy little bitch. Like,
Yeah. I mean, I think anyone who saw the movie thought it was fun as hell. Like,
yeah,
and you
like
know,
him not being willing to pay the actors so they had to not have all that marketing. I think is a big part of why it didn't do well. And
and the haters
also,
online.
yeah, that also there sadly were a lot of people who listened to the review bombing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think don't people you would think people would be clever enough by now. They'd be like, wait, so this is apparently the worst thing that's ever been made. Why don't I check the cast list and see and
Oh
look at
yes,
like the
yes.
gender and ethnicities of the cast?
Yeah, oh, I never looked at any of the like reviews for the Marvels to see how ridiculous the review bombing was. But like I remember I remember before She-Hulk came out and they were review bombing that days before, and
Mm-hmm.
I remember particularly one of them that you should have been easily able to tell this is absolutely fake,
Mm-hmm.
and it's insane that there were people who thought it wasn't. Is I remember one where it said that they that um She-Hulk was pregnant with Iron Man's baby.
What?
Yeah, that they were like they ruined the perfect story of Tony Stark because they made a She-Hulk be pregnant with his baby. I'm like, what? Hey,
What are you
what?
talking about? Oh, just the nonsense.
Like, how did anybody believe this kind of stuff?
Mhm.
Y'all are such idiots. Oh man. Oh, well, I think that's really everything. We need to say for this episode and also the review for Generation X. There's not really a lot to talk about with that film.
We talked about everything else it said, but like I'm glad that I watched it.
Oh,
And how cool would it be if one of these characters showed up in Deadpool and Wolverine?
yeah, definitely. It would be funny if like they had a scene where all of the different all of the different Emma Frost actresses appear or something.
Yeah.
And like since like and
Deep
there's an
cut.
actress in this is I I don't remember if there was an Emma Frost in the
There
original
was
three, but I know that
no.
there was one that played her in X-Men Origins Wolverine. And
Uh-huh.
then there was again one that played her in X-Men First Class,
Mm-hmm.
but those were both totally separate. And
Mm-hmm.
like so, there's at least three different actors who have played Emma Frost.
Mm-hmm.
So like that would be
Yeah,
funny
and
to
and
see.
you can also get the voice actress from
Oh
the
yeah,
X-Men shows.
definitely. Or like have Angelo appear her skin and just like You could have him where he stretches his skin and it's painful. And Deadpool and
Oh,
Wolverine are just like, no, that's disgusting.
that would be a good one. I wonder how
uh,
old. I mean, I guess these characters, the quote unquote teenagers, are now like in their 40s
Probably
or
or
50s
even
even. Wait, when did this
older.
come out? Yeah.
Like I feel like with how they looked in the film, I feel like they were easily 20 or 30s
Well, but that
in
was like the
this.
thing in the
Oh, I
90s. Like
know, I know it was.
remember
As in that,
90210.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's something I've been thinking about a lot lately of how there used to be adult actors always playing teenagers, and
Hmm.
with everything that's come out with like the Quiet on Set documentary about
Hmm.
how teenagers on sets, makes me wonder if that might have actually been a good thing that
Yeah.
that there were adults also instead of having teenagers acting on these sets.
Well, yeah. I mean, it makes sense for a number of reasons, but
Yeah, I'm like, I don't, I, it doesn't feel, it's not good performances to have adults playing teenagers, but at least you didn't have all that abuse towards towards teenage
right.
actors.
Well, yeah. It's just yeah, still young adults too would
And
get it.
like, which a part of me is like, but that's like taking away that work from the teenage actors because of the abusers is bad. But then
Right. It's
also
like
a part of me is like, at the same time, I don't love the idea of minors working in the film industry in general, just because child labor is not a good thing.
hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
there's so many different and like parts to it that I'm just like, it's really complicated.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that life?
Yeah. Well, is there any final thing you'd like to say before I end this off?
No, just yeah, thank you for having me on. Yeah, looking forward to Deadpool Wolverine.
Hmm.
Um, fingers crossed that we get our random cameo. Looking forward to talking about it on the
Let's see.
Lorehounds.
Yeah, we'll see. See one of these random characters appear on here as one of Cassandra Nova's goons or something.
Yeah. Yeah, just a deep cut for the real fans.
Oh man. Well, everyone, please check out Elijah on the Lorehounds
Alicia,
podcast.
yeah.
Alicia, sorry, I
Hmm.
keep saying it wrong. Alicia on the Lorehounds podcast. I know you'll have a lot of fun there. There. And also thank you for coming on. I really enjoyed having you. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah, this is a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to watch this, a lot of fun to get to talk about this and everything
Oh
else.
yeah.
So thank you again.
Well, thank you everyone for listening. If you like this game analysis, please give a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or a 5-star rating on Spotify. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the episodes. Please let me know. If you'd like to listen more from me, please subscribe. Many more game analysis from me coming, so keep on the lookout. This again is your host, Smash Jerry John, signing off.